Hey, it's Ken from Cactus Jam Board Games. Today we're going to be talking about actions in the game of World Order. Pull up a chair, join me at the table. See you on the other side. In this video, we're going to talk about the actions that a player can take in the game of World Order. There are 8 basic actions. We're going to go through all 8 of them. And then on top of that, we can also talk about taking the strategic action card actions or even an executive order action as well. So to take a regular action, you're going to play a card from your hand face up in front of you and do what it says. In this example, it says improve relations with a country on the board. So we're going to come over to the main board, choose from one of the country cards that are face up. There are 7 different regions. There are 2 cards in each, so there's 14 cards available all the time. We're going to choose one of those cards. Let's go to the Middle East, where we're going to choose Iraq and improve relations. Okay, we're going to bring the card back to our display. The power ranking for the card shows 2 here in this hexagon on the top corner. That's going to be the cost in diplomacy that we're going to have to pay to become allies with this country. Our diplomacy marker right now is shown here. It's at the 4 position. That's a 4 right there. And we're going to pay the cost of 2 and then add this card to our display. And now we're allies with the country of Iraq. Alternatively, I'm going to place this back here. Alternatively, we can reduce the cost to become allies with the country by exhausting countries from the same region that we have in front of us. So we have Jordan, also from the Middle East, the color kind of gives it away, with a power ranking of 1. So by exhausting this card, and when you exhaust a card, you just turn it over. So this is an exhausted card. When you do so, the cost is subtracted from the price in diplomacy that you have to pay to become allies or improve relations with Iraq. So in this example, 2 minus 1 is 1, so the cost would only be 1. Let's talk about another scenario of improving relations with a card. If you notice, again, we start with allied cards at the beginning of the game for each country. Those are the ones that have the flags on them here. If we choose one of those countries to improve relations with, meaning the card is on the board, and in this example, we see that Norway is found in the European region on the board. If we were to take this action to improve relations with Norway, we can actually not only improve relations with the country, but we can also get a cube onto the board. And remember, getting cubes on the board are the main way that we're going to score. So as before, the cost would be whatever's shown here in the hexagon, in this case 2. We have 2 countries from Europe. Obviously, we have Norway that we're trying to improve relations with Norway again. We could exhaust this card, but I don't recommend that. There's actually a reason why you don't want to exhaust this card when we take this action. Instead, we can exhaust the EU member states, which has a value of 2 as well. So 2 minus 2 is 0, so it doesn't cost us any diplomacy. And now we've become friends or improved relations with Norway a second time. When we do that, we're going to flip over this card right here, the original card. It's always going to be exhausted, but it's really the top card that will indicate if this card is exhausted or not. But now, since we have improved relations with Norway a second time, that allows us to play an influence cube in the region that the card is from. In this case, it came from Europe. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, you see the Europe section right here. We can place a cube in one of the spots here. Let's cover this one spot, and we'll score 1 victory point immediately. Whenever we improve relations and we take a card from the board, we look to the region where we took it from. If we took the last card from one of the stacks in that region, go ahead and replace it, and we'll go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so the next action we're going to take a look at is also diplomatic. In this case, it's going to be engage a region. We're going to choose one of the 7 regions on the board. We're going to look at the cost of engaging it. Engaging a region means we're going to place one of these engagement tokens onto that region and also a cube there as well. What are the costs? Well, the costs are shown just below where the cubes can be placed. Let's choose Africa as the region where we want to engage. And I should mention right here that you can only engage in regions in which you have an allied country. So right now, the European Union, at the beginning of the game and after the first action where you've improved relations with these countries, European Union has allies in America, Europe, Middle East, and then finally Africa. So Africa is a place where we can go ahead and engage. The cost for engaging in Africa is 3 diplomacy. We have 3 diplomacy, but very similar to improving relations with a country, we can reduce the cost by exhausting country cards from that region. So let's go ahead and do that. Nigeria has a value of 1. The cost of engaging Africa is 3, so 3 minus 1 is 2, and so that's going to be the cost that we pay. And whenever you engage in a region, you're going to place a cube in that region as well. Score the victory points for doing so. So the next type of action we're going to talk about include the economic actions. And the first one we're going to mention is invest in an allied country. So when you invest in an allied country, you're going to choose one of the allied countries that are up on top of your board. You can only invest in a country for this action, countries that are not exhausted. So in this example, we cannot invest in these 3 countries. We can invest in these 3 countries. To invest in a country, you pay the amount that's shown here, just below the power indicator. And let's go ahead and choose Canada to invest in. The amount shown here is 15, so you pay 15 to the bank. Grab an FDI token from the reserve by the side of the board, and we're going to go ahead and flip this card over after we pay the amount, and then we're going to add this FDI token here. This indicates that during the return on the investment action phase, or sorry, not action phase, but phase later on in the round, we're going to score 2 money times the power of the card here. So in this example, we will score 4 money. In addition, we're going to get a cube and we're going to place it in the Americas and score those victory points immediately. The next economic action we're going to take is trade. So during the setup, we set aside some cards here. The first card that I want to talk about is the trade deals card, which shows for the European Union that they can export 2 types of goods and import 2 types of goods. They can do each of those one time. So more specifically, they can export 2 types of good one time and import 2 types of good one time. And on top of that, one more rule that has to be clarified is that any good that is exported cannot then be imported and vice versa. So if you import something, you can't then export it. So let's go ahead and take a look at exporting. When we export, we're going to export to our allied countries. Exhausted or not, it doesn't matter. We're just going to look at the symbols that are found at the bottom of the board here. And we're talking about the large symbols that are found on the left-hand side of the card. And we're going to count up, we're going to pick one of those resources. Let's pick food in this example. And we see that there's a food icon here, here, and here. That means we can export 3 units of food. Well, it just so happens that we have 3 units of food to begin with. When we export those 3 units of food to our allies, we just reduce the amount here and then collect the money from the bank. How much money? On the back of the player aid, there's a table that shows you how much you get for food. In the case of food, you're going to get 5 money for each one when you export, for a grand total of 15 in this example. So go ahead and collect that money, and now we can export again. What else can we export? Well, consumer goods, services, and then finally army units as well. Let's choose services in this example. And I see for services we have 4. How many can we export? Looks like 2 to Norway. It's a good thing that we became or improved the relations with them. That gave us an extra unit to trade. So let's go ahead and do that. Trade 2, we score 15 when we look it up on the table. We score 15 for each one, or 30 total. And we've just definitely increased our income, or I should say our supply of money for this round. Now we can bring goods in. Remember, you can bring in goods, 2 goods in this example for Europe, 2 goods, 1 time each. Now, when you bring them in 1 time each, what I mean is you can select that action 1 time and then bring it in from every source possible. So in this example, Iraq, Norway, and Canada all produce oil or energy for us. Let's go ahead and import from them. Currently, our supply is 1. Let's bring in 1 each from those 3 countries, and we're up to 4. Okay, we're going to pay money to the bank equal to the cost of importing oil or fuel or energy, and that is 3 each or 9 total. In addition, your competitors, the other players on the board, are going to have cards very similar to these cards right here. Now, I've just grabbed the Russian Federation and the People's Republic of China cards here just to kind of make it easy for us to see in this example. We can go to other players and say, we would like to import goods from your countries. What goods do each country produce? Well, that's shown right here for you. Okay, so you can see it. US produces services, China consumer goods, and then Russia produces the energy and raw materials. So let's go ahead, as part of that single trade of taking oil from these 3 countries, let's also take 3 units of oil from Russia as well. The Russian player would flip this card over, indicating that they have supplied those goods to us. We pay Russia, in this example, the cost of importing oil or energy, which is 3 each or 9 total. Increase this marker up to 7, pay them the money, and then because we've traded with another player, we can get 1 diplomacy. Now, if we trade with 1, 2, or 3 other players, we can only score 1. Okay, so you just get it 1 time. That's 1 import oil. We've gone from 1 up to 7. That's pretty darn good. Let's go ahead and get another good brought in. Now, our allies only produce oil that we can trade with them. We'd have to get another country producing something else to get something else. So instead, we've got to reach out to another player. I think we're going to reach out to the China player and ask them if we can, and when I say ask them, we're going to be telling them they cannot deny this. They must make the trade. They have a card here. They flip that over. We pay them the amount. In this case, it's going to be 10 money for importing, and then we go up here. Remember, we've already got our diplomacy for trading with the Russian player. We don't get it again when we trade with the Chinese player. If a player has all of their cards flipped over like this, so they could say, well, I don't have any to trade with you, you can go into their general supply as well and take them from here. So if another player came to us and said, we would like to get services from you, we would have a supply here that we could trade them. But if both of these cards were flipped over, they would take them from here. We can't deny them. If they want to take it and they pay us for it, we have to give it to them. Okay, I think we've covered the trade action, so let's move on. Okay, the next type of actions we're going to talk about are the military actions. There's 2 major actions. One is build a base in an allied country. When you build a base in an allied country, 2 things have to be true. First of all, the card cannot be exhausted. It must be in the ready state. In our example right here, only 2 countries satisfy that, Iraq and Norway. In addition, the country must also have an icon on it indicating that we can build a military base there. So for example, the icon that we're looking for, this is what the military base symbol looks like, and we're looking for that on a card. Most of our allies have that. So if you take a look at all of our allies, they have that symbol on it, but most importantly, it has to have our flag on it as well. So we're talking about this symbol right here, not this one, but this one right here. That indicates that we can build a military base there. For example, Iraq was not a country we started with. It doesn't have our flag up here, but it does have the icon to allow us to build a military base there. The US can also build a base there. However, the US has to be allied with this country, and of course they're not because we are. Nigeria does not have the symbol on it, so we cannot build a military base in any situation. Let's go ahead and build a military base in Iraq. The cost for building a military base is going to be 5 money paid to the bank. That symbol goes there. Oops, we got to do one more thing. We got to flip the card over, indicating that it's exhausted. We've built a military base there. Okay, pay the money to the bank. In the case of building a military base, it's 5 always. And now we must move army units to that region. How many can we move? Well, Iraq has a power of 2. We can move anywhere from 1 to 2. So from 1 up to the strength of the country. We have 2 military units. Let's just move one of them. The cost for moving a military unit anywhere in the game, from the player board to the main board or anywhere within the main board itself, it costs 5 money. We pay to the bank. So the total cost so far, if we move 1 armored unit to Iraq after we build a base there, is going to be 5 plus 5 or 10 total. Let's go ahead and place our army unit in the Middle East, and we get to add a cube to that region as well, scoring the victory points. So that's building a base in an allied country. Next, we are going to have a card that looks like this, where it says gain army and then move. The move is the really important part because that's the actual action. The gain army unit is that kind of an extra action. And let's talk about the wording here for this card as well. When it says gain 1 army, that means just go to your supply, take it from your supply and add it to your board. So we've just replenished the army that we placed on the board earlier. If it says produce armies, that's where we have to take the produce military or army units, that action right here. To build these units, we have to spend the resources to make that happen. If it said produce, not technically, we wouldn't be able to, because these 2 resources are required to actually be able to build a military unit. So it's great that this says gain. So we gain 1 military unit, and now we can move up to 2 of them. We can move them from our player board to the main board, and we can move them on the main board from one region to another. Let's go ahead and add 1 more military unit. We're going to have to, because we've moved 1, we're going to have to pay 5 money to the bank. And let's move this to Europe. Oh, when you move military units, you can move them to any place where you have a base or you have an interest in that region. And an interest in a region is shown by having a flag. Your flag is shown there in that region. So in this example, European Union definitely has presence or a flag in Europe. They do have an interest in it, so they can place a military unit there. Now, when you place military units this way, no cubes are added to the board. Okay, the last 2 actions we're going to take are the domestic actions. The first one is, we're going to skip down to the bottom here. This says produce, and specifically it says produce 3 resource types. Go to your board here. We're talking about this section. These are your production levels for all the types of goods that you have. So what can you produce? Well, you can produce anything that you're allowed to produce, which is any of these items. When you produce goods, you're going to look at the current production level. In the case of energy, it's 1. We're loaded with energy. I don't think we need to make it. I think food is something we definitely need to get. So when we produce it, it doesn't cost us anything. We just produce it. 3 food. You can do it 1 time. So I can't go back to it and say, well, I'd like to produce food again or a second time. No, it's 1 time for this action. I can also produce goods that require other types of goods. So for example, consumer goods require ore and energy. Great move for me. Let's go ahead and do something that I'm pretty well suited to produce a little bit, and that's going to be the services. We're going to use energy and food. We can produce up to 4 services. I have 3 food. That's my limiting agent or reagent here in this reaction. So let's go ahead and reduce this by 3. We also have to reduce energy by 3. And then we're going to increase services by 3. Okay, so that's produced the second item. First we produce food, now services. The third one, let's go ahead and produce diplomacy. Diplomacy is just simply money. The cost is 3 money per diplomacy that you produce. Well, we can produce up to 4. I think Europe wants to have a lot of it. Starting with 2, let's produce up to 6, which would be the 4. Pay the 12 money to the bank. That's our third production. So that's how production works. The last action we can do, a domestic action, is get a growth card. And when you get a growth card, you're going to go to the market, the growth card market, and you're going to choose a level 1 card because I don't have any in front of me. Once I've picked a level 1 card, I pay the amount that's shown here. In this case, 1 service and 10 money. I get 1 victory point, and then this one has an immediate effect. Other cards have a triggered effect or will happen later on in the game. Just follow whatever the card says and you'll be good to go. The second time you get a growth card, you must take a level 2 if you have a level 1 already. So you take a level 2 next. So you can't take a second level 1. You got to move up to level 2. The third time you must take a level 3 card and so forth all the way up to level 5. The cards all give you victory points in increasing amounts, but their costs also go up. In addition, the card benefits, except for level 5, are pretty nice to have. So it's definitely something you want to do, getting these growth cards. Okay, so let's say you have a situation where you're looking at the cards that are in your hand and none of the cards are the ones you're really looking for, so you're kind of stumped. Well, what you can do is one of 3 options. One option is to pass. Just place a card face down in front of you. Any card will do. Collect 10 money from the bank and your turn is done. I'm guessing this is probably not something you want to do a lot. And instead there are other options. Let's take a look at those other options. Let's say you're in a situation, again, you have another card in all the cards in your hand, you have nothing you want to play. You can choose to do one of these strategic cards instead. So you're going to place the card face down in front of you again from your hand, and then you're going to choose one of these cards. When you play the card, you're just going to read what it says here, do the actions as best to your ability, and then when the turn is done, you're going to take this card and place it face down in this stack, meaning that card is out of play. It can be used once and no more. Alternatively, and I'll put this guy back, alternatively, you can choose the executive order card. What does this do for you? Well, this card has every single basic action on it, all 8 actions that we just covered in the video. Place a face down card in front of you and you can do any one of these actions then. So if you find yourself in a situation where you don't have, say, a military card that you really want to do a military action, face down card from your hand, do one of these and you're good. If you use this card though, it must be discarded. Now, one thing about these cards, if they make it to the end of the game face up in front of you, they're worth victory points. 2, 2, and 3. So you can score up to 7 if you don't use these cards. However, my guess is, maybe not so much for this one here, but for these cards here, oftentimes you can get a lot of victory points if you end up playing these cards. So it's probably in your benefit to play them. I just don't have enough experience with the game yet, but I'm guessing it makes more sense to play them rather than keep them for the end for the 2 victory points. Okay, this is the World Order player aid. I think it says player aid on the top on the back side. This is going to be quite useful for you. It's going to walk you through all of the actions, tell you what you can do, tell you how you have to play a card. You're going to play it face down in front of you to do a strategic asset card instead, or the executive order card, or take a pass action. Again, it talks about all the things you can do, and then it goes through each of the actions, starting with diplomatic, going to military, then over here to the economic, including trade. Oh, this is the table I was talking about before, where the price of the goods for exporting and the price of the goods when you import them. Okay, and then finally for investment, how to invest in a country. Again, kind of what I walked you through, this idea of choose a ready allied country, exhaust it, spend the money equal to the amount listed on the card, put an FDI token above it, and you'll get income during the return on investment phase. And then finally, get a growth card or produce goods. And it walks you through all those steps. It's very nice. All the information is there. Very little clarification is needed based on what's written on here. There is more information in the manual for taking all those actions, but largely our questions are going to be answered just by using this. The round overview, and this is important right here because it walks us through all the different steps that we're going to go through, including we skip this in the first round, but we're going to be drawing cards in rounds 2 through 6. We're going to reveal new country cards for each region, determine turn order, then go to produce primary resources. Those are the top ones. That would be the energy, the food, and the ore. And then we're going to choose focus. When we choose focus, we're going to determine what sort of goods we can produce for that round, what our emphasis is going to be on, either domestic, diplomatic, or military. For an action phase, this is where we playing our cards. So we have 6 cards in our hand, typically, or at least at the beginning of the game. You're going to play 4 of them in turn order, each one taking a turn, coming around to you again. After that's done, we're going to do the research. That's where we purchase new ability cards from the market below the main board. And if we're not playing with a 4-player, we're not playing a 4-player game, we will have a bot that is playing where cubes are going to be added to the board for the player, the country that's not being played. Aftermath. So we're going to return investments. Any allied country card that has an FDI token on it, you're going to score money for it. You're going to increase prosperity by using the prosperity marker. What that means is you're just going to spend consumer goods that you have in your own supply. If you can do that or choose to do that, you're going to score victory points and money for doing it. So it's a quick way of getting some cash. Then we're going to resolve threats, and we're going to talk about resolving threats and scoring when we talk about the scoring phase in another video. Each of the steps are shown here, though. More information for research, how that we go through all that, return on investment, increasing prosperity, and then finally resolving threats. Okay, so that is the player aid for the European Union. Each player aid is unique, however, mostly it overlaps. For the other players, there are minor things that have to be done, or things to be considered for a particular player and how you play them. And you'll see that when you see the player aid. So that's our video on taking actions in the game of World Order. In the next video we're going to cover scoring with examples, also the turn sequence, and go through each and every phase with all the rules. So with that, I think we're going to wrap up. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.